We made over 10,000 job applications last year, all for tech leadership roles, think managers, directors, and VPs, and we landed more than 1,000 interviews for our clients. Here are 17 things that we have learned that will significantly change how successful you are in your job hunt as a senior leader in IT and tech. So let's crack right into it. Number one, speed matters. Apply early. Most people waste way too much time before acting upon it. They come across a job posting thinking that they will research the role later and find some time in the evening or weekend to apply. If you're not early in on the applications, you're already out. We noticed that when we sped up the application and networking efforts for our clients, we got disproportionate returns in form of the booked interviews. Keyword optimized resumes sold by career coaches and resume writers to beat ATS are a scam. We spoke to multiple recruiters regarding this. There is no such bot that scans your resumes for keywords. Your resume has to make sense to a human after all, and that too very quickly. So have proper story, context, and metrics to support your claims. That's all you need. The hidden job market is mostly another myth or gimmick used by career coaches. All interviews that we landed came from public job boards like LinkedIn and Indeed, and perhaps you might have heard the stat that somewhere around 70% of these jobs are hidden. It sounds sexy, it sounds mysterious, but it's also complete nonsense. Most roles are posted online because most companies want to find best possible talent, not to keep their roles a secret. And if a role is hidden, which by the way happens only for a select few very rare roles, then there is a good reason behind it. Like they're replacing someone confidentially, like a CISO at a public company. And in that case, only 2 to 3 people know about it. That too, they are under a non-disclosure agreement and they're looking for a very specific profile. So if that's you, then they will find you, but only if your profile is clear and discoverable. Having your niche clearly defined on your LinkedIn profile will help you massively on that. You don't need a referral or an insider to land interviews, even for senior leadership roles. Hiring managers will talk to you only if you are a fit. And if you are a fit for the role, then it does not matter if you are introduced by someone or if you self-introduce. The point is that the hiring manager must be able to see at a very high level how you precisely fit the role. All of the effort should be geared around just that. Asking recruiters or your known network for openings has around roughly a 0.5 to 1% success rate. It's not worth the effort. When most people first start looking for a role, they only turn to think of reaching out to people that they know, be it the recruiters or acquaintances at other companies. They ask if these folks have any relevant openings that they can consider. Now, this is seriously ineffective because of 2 profound reasons. One, your network is very limited. Even if you are a top 5 percentile networker in the world, you may at best know around 100 people who you could reach out to. Compare that to the vast market where thousands of companies are looking to hire every week. And even among those that you know, they can only help you if they have an opening at their company. Senior leadership positions, unlike entry-level positions, do not get created out of thin air just because somebody knows you. There needs to be a budgeted rec for hiring to happen at this level. So this entire strategy of reaching out to your known network is simply relying on hope. Most job seekers don't have as good of an interview skills as they think. This one is pretty straightforward. A lot of customers before starting with us told me, well, if you can only get me the interviews, I can nail it from there. I only need interviews, rest I can handle. And initially I used to believe it, thinking that these people are operating at leadership positions already, they'd at least know how to talk. Now, having seen so many leaders fail in interviews for some sort of like basic communication related issues, taught me that doing the job and interviewing for the job are 2 very different skill sets, and most people do not know the latter. Size matters. Just because you are a director at a big company does not mean you will automatically be qualified to become a VP at a small company. And I know the salary looks similar, the team size might even be bigger, so you think like, hey, it's a step down in company size, so I should step up in the title. But that's not how it works. What most tech leaders miss is this: a scaling company does not want big company leadership. They want somebody who's built in chaos. It's a different game, it's different rules, and at an enterprise, your game is to optimize, manage, maintain, you play the long game. At a scaling company, you ship fast, you break stuff, you make decisions with 60% of the data and zero safety net. So that's why you keep seeing this line on job descriptions, especially for a scaling environment. So like, hey, we want somebody who has experience in a scaling environment. This is highly preferred. That's not a filler. That's a code for like, hey, if you haven't built in this kind of mess that we are in, don't even bother. You have tested this hundreds of times. And when they say it, they mean it. So before you apply, ask yourself one question, like, have I actually done what they're asking for in their kind of environment? And the answer is no. Then don't waste your time. You're not getting screened out because you're under leveled. You're getting screened out because you're not relevant to them. If you're tailoring your resume for every role, then something's wrong with your resume or your targeting, because if you were a clear fit, you wouldn't have to tailor your resume. Your experience is your experience. It can't and shouldn't change with changing requirements. That said, it can fit into specific requirements, and that's what one should aim for. Companies aren't looking to give you a chance at trying your hand at something new. If they need a specialist in, let's say, ERP transformation, they're not going to settle for some infrastructure and operations leader who might have dabbled in ERPs. Tailoring to highlight more of your ERP experience in this instance wouldn't help. The job market for senior leadership roles is always difficult. This happens because of two reasons. One, pyramid converges towards the top, so as you grow higher, the number of positions get fewer. And two, hiring for senior leadership roles especially involves making significant bets on the company's side. So it's a bet on investment and it's a bet on business decisions. So they go through a lot of scrutiny before hiring. They won't just hire you just so you can learn and grow. They're looking for proven experts who have already solved the kind of challenges that they face. And that's why no matter when you jump in the market, it'll always seem difficult. But waiting for the right market only causes further career stagnation in your current role, and it will phase you out of the market real quick. So waiting does not make any sense here. Instead of broadly applying for all roles with a catch-all resume, niche out and apply to a narrow market. That's right. If you go after fewer, more fitting roles with your entire profile dedicated to speak specifically to those roles only, then you'd have far greater success. So here are some stats to illustrate. IT director level position. The number of eligible candidates for that role would be 260,000 candidates if I'm look onto the LinkedIn just to do a search. But if I start niching out, so I'm looking for directors of IT with specific experience in mid-sized companies who are familiar with SAP suite of applications and they are enterprise applications leader, and more specifically they have worked in finance function and they have done finance modernization. Well, then the number of eligible candidates is only 18. Compare that to 260,000. So what most people make the mistake of is that they market themselves as a general IT leader, thinking that this will make them a target for a broad category of roles. But the odds of landing an interview with this is 1 in every 260,000. Versus if you define your niche clearly, the odds are 1 in every 18 applications. Again, these odds can be further improved, but simply put, niching out to a narrow market is the single greatest lever you can pull in your job search effort. You need more than just a few interviews to succeed. You need a consistent pipeline. Many times, you may go all the way to the final interviews only to be disqualified and start all over the process again. It stings a little less if you already have other interviews lined up. Which brings me to the next point. Building a consistent pipeline of interviews gives you the much needed negotiating leverage in the market that is already employer dominated. The ability to walk out of a deal is the single greatest negotiating leverage one has in any situation. So having other interviews lined up gives you just that. So you can ask for things that you want rather than settling for what they can offer. Contacting the hiring managers directly for a very fitting role with the right message is massively underrated and under-executed hack. If you really are a fit for a role, then do an extensive research and figure out who is the hiring manager for that role and then reach out to them. They want to hear from you. And if you reach out to them the right way, you wouldn't annoy them. Far from it, they'll be glad that you reached out. All of the interviews that we have landed thus far are from these outreaches. We hear it on a weekly basis where the hiring managers respond to our clients and they're like, oh, thanks for connecting. If it wasn't for this email, we wouldn't have found you. But in reality, less than 1% of the people would even try this before dismissing it off as like, oh, reaching out to the hiring managers does not really work, or it will annoy the hiring managers. I talk to SVPs and C-levels of multiple mid-sized and large companies on a weekly basis, and they all say the same thing. Varun, I have a big pool of candidates, but I still cannot find the right one. Somebody who has this XYZ kind of expertise. And to be honest, I don't even have the time to look for and find the right person. And in my head, I'm going like, hey, there are multiple candidates I can think of right now with the very limited folks that I know. So they're also facing a problem of them not being able to find the right candidate, and reaching out to the hiring managers directly bridges that gap. If you're not landing the interviews, it's really because of a slow market. Instead, it's likely because you have a product problem or you have a marketing problem. Product problem simply means that you have skills and experience, but there isn't enough demand for it in the market, especially for the levels or the roles that you're going after. This is one of the more harder problems to solve, to be honest. A classic example is a leader who stayed in a stagnant role for a little too long while the market evolved. Those skills are, if not obsolete, then irrelevant enough that they don't stand a chance among the competition that exists in the market. In such cases, it's better to make a lateral move and upskill first, and then a few years later make a strategic move. But before you convince yourself that you have a product problem that takes a toll on your confidence, know that very few people have this kind of product problems. 9 out of 10 people have a marketing problem, meaning that they have the skills and the experience, and then there is demand for them in the market for their talent, but there's also massive competition, and it's just that these folks do not know how to market themselves effectively, or they lack the time to do so. Most times it's both. And it's so funny that many people with marketing problem assume that they have product problem, and it's always the people with product problem who are convinced that the people should be hiring them left and right and have the wrong expectations out of the market. Passively looking for opportunities is a delusion. Most people are passively looking in the market will either undersell themselves in the next few months, or they will take at least 2 to 3 years to land a proper role. If you are to land a top tier role, you need to be in an active mindset. Passive people do not make it to the top. Doing the basics right gets you most of the results. To get an interview, you're only solving the 3 conditions. 1, you must be fit for a role. 2, the hiring manager must see that you are a fit for the role. And 3, among all the other candidates that applied, you should be one of the more qualified ones. All of your job search effort should be directed towards this alone. You solve for these 3 conditions, you will get the interviews. And lastly, most people do not fail from a lack of knowledge, they fail from a lack of execution. We started our business and career coaching. We soon realized that the difference between the top performing and non-performing clients was simply execution. And even when we shared all of our knowledge, tried our best to hold these people accountable, it was hard to bring people these results because they just didn't have the time to execute. They were busy professionals. And that's why we moved to a done for you service model, where we bring in our expertise as well as our execution into your job search to land you more interviews on autopilot. Our team takes care of all things from defining your marketing to building your resume and LinkedIn profile, finding and applying to the jobs, finding out the hiring managers, creating tailored outreach for them, and scheduling interviews. That way, we are able to act much faster and way better than you can. And that's our secret sauce for having the best results in the industry by far. If you're interested, visit our website, wolfmentoring.com, to learn more.